Podcast Macabre.
We bid you welcome, enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm.
And I'm David Graves.
We will be your horror hosts for this dissection of Denis Villeneuve's 2024 space opera epic, Dune Part 2.
Good evening. Here we are. We've been waiting for this for a long time.
We have. Any sort of new cultists might not know this, but our whole podcasting journey started with Dune.
Yeah, and we were such fanboys that we even did a short episode where we went through the Dune 1 trailer, just frame by frame.
Yeah, and analyzed it and made predictions and things like that. Yeah. So we've been waiting for this for quite a while, and then it was supposed to come out last year, and it got delayed, and we finally get to see it.
Yeah, this is a long time coming, and now we are, there's going to be another one. So
yeah, I think it's not official, but every single interview, Dune Messiah comes up. So
yeah, and I mean, so the second half, this was made for $190 million, and just after, within 10 days of it coming out, it had already doubled that.
Yeah.
So it's already outstripped Dune 1 monetarily. It's just killing it because everyone was just thirsty to get into the theaters and see this.
Yeah, and some of the IMAX screens were running around the clock, like they were adding late night showings because it's optimized for IMAX.
Yeah, I saw it on IMAX. It was pretty sweet.
Good. Now you bring that up. We don't have a single full size 70 millimeter IMAX in the Pacific Northwest at all.
Wow. So mine was the ghetto Regal IMAX.
Yes, the Regal IMAX that we have to settle for. There was a 70 millimeter IMAX in Vancouver, BC. It's temporarily closed, and so I think the closest one is in California for us.
Oh, that's a real bummer.
It frustrates me because I want to see this. I want to see movies like this on the biggest screen possible. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point though, you have to get further away because it's just so much. It's huge. Like I was sitting in the back row of Dune, and it was still huge. Like it was crazy.
The sweet spot I find is like upper middle. Kind of puts you kind of dead center in the screen. It's the worst spot if you need to go to the bathroom ever, but it's the best spot as far as like viewing the whole screen and getting that sense of immersion.
I will say the theater was pretty full, and I did not see it opening weekend. I was like fully more than a week after release, and it was absolutely packed. It was just crazy.
Yeah, I missed the preview screening the Sunday before it released, but I saw it that first Thursday night. And I got to say, it's been probably since like Avengers Endgame that I went to a Regal cinema that packed with that many people like into it.
Yeah.
Like leaning forward in their seats, hanging out in the lobby, talking about it afterwards. Like the hype level for this movie is huge.
It was crazy how much people just were absolutely on board with this. They were just, I don't know, freaking out over it.
So the first Dune came out in 2021. Is that?
I think so.
Right? Yeah. For kids from that period, like say you were like a teenager, like a freshman in high school, this is your Star Wars. Yeah,
it was funny because I saw a meme where someone said like, oh yeah, my son said, this is our Star Wars. And it's like, no.
It's Grandpa's Star Wars.
Yeah. This is Star Wars for Goths, and it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, but it is like fundamental to them, like in a way that it can't be for us.
Yeah,
as older,
kind of like how millennials
with Harry Potter.
With Harry Potter, yeah.
Yes, that's their Star Wars.
Yes, it's sad for them.
I know it's their Star Wars. If George Lucas turned out to be a terrible person later in life,
that lady just won't back down. She's dug in.
She likes shooting herself in the foot.
She's too rich to care what we think.
You need to hear my terrible takes.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
This was a good movie that I was excited to see. I went and saw it with a group.
Really?
And yeah, it's just a group of friends, and it was cool. We talked a bunch about it afterwards. So I've got some thoughts. I mean, I really feel like this dissection is going to be a little bit different than most because I didn't sit. Normally I'm sitting at home and I'm like going through every category that we cover. Anybody who's a frequent listener knows that we have about 5 categories that we go through. And this one to me is a little more holistic of a review because I couldn't stop. I didn't have a laptop or anything, so it was all from memory. And so hopefully that works.
You're going off of one viewing, correct?
One viewing.
I am also on one viewing, but I have to shout out the Gom Jabbar podcast. Did a 2-episode deep dive where they went scene by scene through the movie, and I listened to both episodes.
Oh man, you better not be regurgitating their content.
Oh no, they had some good jokes, and I'm going to do my best to not use any of them. Okay. Like it's always like, oh, that's good. Don't say it. Don't accidentally say that joke. Then you have to
credit them.
Yeah. Oh, that came from Leo on Gom Jabbar.
I will say that I did read a bunch of reviews after I saw the movie, just so that I could confirm some things that I thought, that other critics had thought as well, and just sort of chew on it a little with more perspective. I think that's valuable.
I do too.
But I mean, all these opinions are mine, and I don't agree with a lot of people. So we're gonna see. We're going to see how it goes. But first, I don't have much in the way of Dark Tidings. I just got one. So,
I only have one, too.
Oh, perfect. Let's see who beats it to it with the initiative. Oh, a 3.
I got a 2.
Oh, snap. I'm going to steal your thunder right here, right now.
It better not be the same one.
Godzilla -1 won the VFX award, Oscar. It's the first Godzilla to win an Academy Award. That's huge. That's a big fucking deal.
It is.
Was this your story?
No.
Okay,
not.
cool.
That was my backup story. If you had stolen the other one.
So yeah, it won 8 awards at the Japanese Academy Awards.
Yeah.
But this is the first time it won at the American Academy Awards. Not that ours are more important. It's just that it's never happened before.
It has never happened before, and the closest movie budget-wise to it was The Creator at $80 million. And Godzilla -1 has a reported budget between $10 and $15 million.
And they did it old school, which is best school.
And it's that. I mean, that was my movie of the year last year.
That's why I thought you were going to choose
I can say confidently it's the best Godzilla movie there has ever been.
Wow. Should they just stop making Godzilla movies?
Every generation deserves to get theirs.
I mean, you saw the preview watching Dune with there's the Godzilla and Kong team up movie, whatever that's called.
I bought my tickets for that. My expectations are low.
That's
big dumb fun.
My assumption is that I have to see that because we have to talk about it.
We have to talk about it? Okay. Yeah, that's a whole other kind of Godzilla. -1 is like...
Dude, Kong has a robo hand. It's cybernetics.
I think they call it a power glove.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah, like the wizard with Fred Savage. He had a power glove.
See, as a 40K player, I was like, they gave Kong a power fist.
Yeah. And when he punches the Scar King, the bad Kong in the face and like knocks his tooth out, it's pretty dope. I mean, but that's a whole other flavor of Godzilla.
It's like a cartoon. It's not really a horror movie.
No, not at all. It's like wrestling. Those movies are like pro wrestling, and Godzilla -1 is like a rumination on the legacy of the atomic bomb. It's a very different thing.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you didn't pick this one or hang your hat on it, but I definitely wanted to call this out because the Oscars happened. I'm not a huge Oscars person. I know some people really worship at the altar, but Oppenheimer won like big time, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Poor Things got a ton of awards.
Yeah,
too,
and I have
favorites.
not seen that.
My gut says you wouldn't like it.
Okay, well, I mean, I didn't watch Barbie. I didn't think I'd like that, but it didn't win many awards, so I won't go see it.
Yeah, I watched almost all the award shows this year, which is the first time I've done it, from the Golden Globes through to the Oscars. And watching all of the award shows is like following the presidential primary. Because
basically pointless, and who's going to win?
No, they all inform each other, and candidates gain momentum. And
I mean, not this time. We already knew who's going to win the primaries this time. It's not even a thing.
You mean with Trump and Biden?
Trump and Biden are going to win the primaries.
You're right. This is unusual in that
normally these are fun. Like,
we have pre-chosen two terrible candidates.
Yeah, I'm a dweeb for politics. I'm a social studies guy. Yeah. I love the primaries. Like, I follow them like gangbusters, but not this time.
Yeah, there's no
primary.
The incumbent,
they always win.
They always should win their party. And if you really run a spoiler, you basically ruin it for your party.
Your party, yeah.
And no Republicans have the guts to go against Trump.
I mean, rip Nikki Haley.
I know.
The last one trying.
I know. Yeah. Well, anyways, let's move on from that.
Yeah, nobody likes politics anyway.
Yeah. I've got a sad one, and that is the great Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball Z, Dr. Slump, Sandland, Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, on and on and on and on. One of the most important cartoonists of his generation, or of any generation, passed away at the age of 68, which is no age at all.
Yeah, and especially not in Japan, with much better medical care.
Yeah, he had a subdural hematoma, which is like a blood on the brain situation, and I think they kind of kept it quiet for a little while. The statement didn't come out till several days after he passed, but you can't possibly overstate how influential an artist he was.
Yeah.
He really, like in this anime is worldwide now in a way that it was not before.
Every teenager watches anime now.
Yeah. Before Dragon Ball Z, it was not so.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that was the thing that
it's like Dragon Ball and Pokemon and these various things.
Toriyama Sensei really paved the way for where anime is nationwide today. And his loss will be greatly felt because he was still active. He had a bunch of projects in the works at the time of his passing. He was still a vital artist.
Yeah, and we're at that. It's starting to get upon the age where some of the real founders and big names in anime and manga are elders, you know, and that's, we're going to have more and more of these. Like when Oda finally passes someday, that'll be a big loss.
I mean, he's like probably 40.
He's young. Yeah. He's not young. He's not old at all.
Yeah. That will happen. I don't think anyone was expecting this. I remember Dragon Ball, not to like tangent on it a little bit too much. Like Dragon Ball started like creeping across the ocean when I was in high school.
Yeah, I remember.
Like you would see like pictures or clips.
I'm pretty sure we had a buddy that was into it.
Was deep into it. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Matt, is that what we were
thinking? No, I was thinking Johnny because he's such a dweeb for this kind of thing.
Was Johnny deep into Dragon Ball? Maybe. Yeah. Cultist Johnny, are you out there? I don't know if you're still out there or not.
Hopefully he's still listening.
Yeah. Were you an early adopter of Dragon Ball? Get after us and let us know.
Yeah.
But so I would start seeing it in magazines and stuff, and like it's in the pre-internet days. It was interesting how information would start coming across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anyways, R.I.P. Rest in power to the great Akira Toriyama.
All right, so that's what we got for Dark Tidings. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Then we can come back for this dissection of Dune Part 2.
Continuing immediately after the events of Dune Part 1, an exiled duke and his lady mother exploit myth and prophecy to integrate themselves into the culture of an indigenous insurgency in order to gain the power needed for revenge on their enemies.
That is indeed what they did. And it was really interesting how many story decisions were made in this adaptation.
Yeah.
I feel like the first half of Dune 1 was a lot more faithful to the books. This one was very divergent. Maybe the most divergent adaptation.
I don't know about, ever?
No, of the big ones.
Of the big ones. Huh. Maybe.
So David Lynch and then the Sci-Fi Channel.
Okay.
Those are the three.
Yeah. Well, so the Sci-Fi Channel one, as I understand, I haven't watched it, is extremely faithful to its own detriment.
It's slavishly faithful, and it gets boring sometimes.
Yeah. David Lynch does some wild
He does
stuff.
some wild things, like with the weirding modules and all this crazy stuff.
And like, I'm gonna tape a rat to a cat and they milk it. Like there's weird stuff in there.
Well, with the Harkonnens, David Lynch made them bigger, grosser, badder than in the books, and Villeneuve made them more austere and more militant and more dark, regimented.
Yeah,
he made choices too.
Definitely, for sure. It is considerably less faithful than the first film was.
Yes.
I revisited, I finished the film and then I went right back to the book because it's been a few years since I listened to the audiobook. And then, because I was on the Dune train, I went on and did Messiah too because it's quick.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had not.
Have you read God Emperor?
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no. Is that Children of Dune?
Children of Dune, and then God Emperor Dune.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I had not done Messiah before, so
Okay.
that was new for me. Because I had the sense things were changed. Some characterization was changed, and I was like, it feels familiar, but some things feel off, and I needed to remind myself as to what was in the book and what was changed for the movie.
Yeah, I didn't have the time to go back and do a full reread.
Because it's a long book.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of online searching and reading for all my little harebrained schemes.
Okay.
I was looking and finding them. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, and I'm not going to say this is either good or bad. This is just a change.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Harkonnen stuff. Like, I like these ones. I actually like these a lot better than the Lynch Harkonnens. Like, I loved it when they went to Gedi Prime and stuff. Like, it was so
gorgeous.
Amazing. It's just absolutely beautiful.
That stuff is so cool.
Like the plasma effects in the sky for fireworks, just so cool.
Yeah.
And the white-skinned starkness of them all. It was really cool. But like, one thing that I thought was weird was the absence of several important characters from the book. Like, where was Count Fenring?
Yeah.
Where was Thufir?
So both of those characters, we believe there were sequences shot that were cut for time.
Oh, man. If they put out I want a Dune 1 and 2 mega cut with everything.
With all the deleted
Give me
scenes.
like 8 hours.
So Denis Villeneuve is one of these guys that doesn't believe in deleted scenes.
Oh, he thinks if it's gone, it's gone for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So once you've made the cut, there's no sense going back to it. And there's a few directors that feel this way, like, the final film should be the director's cut.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we're ever going to see those the Thufir Hawat or the Count Fenring, who I think it was God, what's his name? I have it later in my notes. Tim Blake Nelson.
Man, that was such a loss because I like those characters a lot.
You feel Thufir's loss, I think, story-wise. You feel it more than Count Fenring, who's just an interesting side character.
Yeah, and
we get his wife.
Yeah, and that's okay for a movie. It's okay for a book to have interesting side characters to build intrigue.
Yeah,
and then they're not needed for a movie, but they were pretty cool, and this was still pretty long.
Yes, it's 245.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a pretty long movie, and Fenring especially. I was thinking, like, what does he actually do in the movie?
Nothing. He adds a level of thinking intrigue to the Baron that the Baron in this version doesn't really have. He's ham-fisted. He's very simple. He doesn't have I wouldn't say simple. His plans are straightforward.
Well, and you don't... What Finring does is has conversations with him so that the reader can understand the motivation of decisions.
Like when the Baron tells Finring that he used Raban to brutalize the planet so that he could have Fade come in and be the savior of the planet. That monologue never happens in the movie.
No, and it's there's something else that Villeneuve has said in a lot of the interviews is that he dislikes dialogue and would prefer a dialogue-free, just visual film.
Oh, man.
And so you get that Raban is unpopular and Fade is popular. That is just apparent through
he's doing
film.
the show don't tell method. Fade is truly loved on Gidi Prime, and he shows up after, and he shows us. I get it, but that was Fenring's role, so that's okay. So let's talk about another change, because we're in the writing, directing, and themes things, and this is probably my biggest wondering, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is. I don't know why he did this. So in the novel Dune, the word fundamentalist is never used, not even one time. There is no major separation in the Fremen, politically speaking. They are all zealot religious people. There aren't cool, young, anti-religious, agnostic kids that get to make fun of the oldies and the Southerners. Right. Like, that just cheapens their unity. That actually just, like, the fact that these people, the Fedaykin and whatnot, the young ones are all just shit talkers. I just hated that. It was so weak. Like all those people are everyone is supposed to heavily doubt Paul until he proves himself through many scenes, which they do, starting with Jameis and all this stuff.
Right.
And then more and more when he gets the worm and all that. But after that, they're all on board. They're all on team, Team Wadib. But in this, no. They're not. Not even his lady is on his side. He's still trying to prove himself because, I don't know, Villeneuve wanted to build more drama.
Well, that's interesting. My take is a little different because in the end, she's literally the only holdout. Everyone gets behind Paul except for her. She's the only one that kind of refuses to deify him. Even what's her name? Her bestie or whatever.
Yeah.
She gets on board to the point where she martyrs herself, being the last one to stay behind at Siege Dabir. So I didn't bump up against that. It did give me the sense of like, I don't remember this, but I think it's still. It just portrays what you're talking about. He has to work harder to win over the youth, essentially.
It felt to me very much like too real world coded. Obviously, the Fremen are very Middle Eastern style coded, and their religion and the way they are very, very, very devout, praying and all of that is coded very much around Islam, and in the universe there's more of that, the Zen Sunni religion and all of that. And so this really felt to me like, oh, we're the cool Western Fremen, and those are the backwards Middle Eastern Fremen, like the zealot weirdo terrorists. Those are the terrorists, and we're the modern people you can talk to. It felt super cheap. And I really hate that they made Stilgar into the object of jokes. Like, Stilgar is like a pillar of badassness. Like, he's such a great leader, but like everyone's just kind of like clowning him when he's making all these things about Lisan al-Gaib.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, oh, come on, don't make fun of my boy.
I mean, my take you're not. I know you're not alone in that view of it, but I don't take it that same way. So I was listening to an interview with Villeneuve yesterday where he was on Q, the talk show on CBC, and he talks about that divide being influenced by his own his French Canadian Catholic background and the generational divide that happened there in Quebec. Between the older generation, which were staunchly Catholic and the church had a lot of influence over, and the younger generation who are ardently Quebecois, but not religious. And that was that sort of generational divide is what he's trying to portray there.
Yeah, he should have left that out. That was terrible.
I mean, I feel like that pulls it into the modern setting in a way that
I don't think you need to rewrite the book. The book was a masterpiece. And I think at this basically like the idea that that the Fremen are the fact that the Fremen are fanatical and that they have been completely programmed and manipulated by the Bene Gesserit.
Right. And that's still there.
Why all of a sudden does the last generation have immunity to the Bene Gesserit programming? It's just like it kind of subverts the tropes of the setting of the whole setting.
Yeah.
The idea is that like the Atreides are what do they say, like 90 odd generations, and the Harkonnens for all this the breeding program, and they set up all these little worlds around the galaxy for with the same religion.
Yeah.
The voice from the outside world is going to come so that they can have their people come in and be that at any time.
The missionary Proctiva or something.
Yeah, it's a programmed religion. Why did it last for, hundreds of years or whatever, and all of a sudden, nah. Like, we don't buy that anymore.
Well, I mean, I just think that's just a natural reflection of generational divides. Like, again, they get on board. Everyone but Chaney, who knows Paul intimately, gets on board behind Paul. Like, by the end of the film, he does win them all over.
Okay, so let's talk about her, because that's another one of my rewrites that I think is terrible. That character basically became Paul's main antagonist. She is the only one that others him and treats him as a non-Fremen. Everybody else treats him like a Fremen, but yet all the way till the very end, she says he's not a Fremen. And that's sad, because in the book, she's like so supportive, and she's still very badass and very strong. Yeah. Being supportive is not a weakness. Yeah. It's not a bad trait. Being supportive is strength. But she's a naysayer, and she never gets on board.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why did you have to create the antagonism between these two characters? Like, it seems like such a weird decision to make.
So just because I've been kind of deep diving all these interviews, Chaney is there for Villeneuve to drive home the point that Frank Herbert felt the audience missed about Paul, that he's not the savior. He's a product of eugenics. And
a fake religion.
And fake religion, right? And so she's there basically so that the audience never forgets that. Because otherwise the audience does, and the audience still does forget it.
And so here's the problem with that.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, and she's going to be the foil, the ideological foil, why then did he write her in a fake-ass prophecy that she has to be involved with the Kwisatz Haderach conversion? Because it just subverts the fact that she's the foil to the fake religion and the fake deity story. Yeah. It's like, that wasn't in the books. Why'd you make that up? We didn't need that.
That is an interesting one, and that is one where, like the thing with the desert spring, the tears of the desert spring, or whatever.
It was as fabricated as the Mentat litany in the Lynch version,
right? Yeah, no, that is an interesting choice, and I heard someone explain it because Jessica uses the voice on her in that scene, right? Where she's like, she does not want to get pulled into the prophecy and made part of the propaganda. She's like, you revive him. You did this to him and you know what to do. And Jessica forces her to get involved so that the prophecy is fulfilled. It's I don't know about that choice. It's one of the choices I'm inclined to also feel a little weird about the change.
Because it's weird. There didn't need to be Jessica didn't have to force her to do that because that wasn't actually necessary in the books.
Right.
Paul literally uses his Bene Gesserit training to neutralize the poison and awaken his mind, etc. He embraces the voice of the matron mothers. The
Reverend Mothers.
Reverend Mothers.
So what happens in the book is essentially just like the film, where Jessica gets there and she summons Chaney, and Chaney comes by ornithopter. Like, that all is the same. But in the book, Jessica doesn't know why Paul is in a coma. Yeah. And Chaney comes in and she's like, you should know your son better. Obviously, he drank the water of life. And Jessica's like, wow. She's like, why would he do something so reckless? And she's like, do you even know this kid?
You basically made him do this.
Yeah. Whereas in this version, because another character that changes quite a bit is Jessica.
Yeah.
Jessica is relentless and uber focused on the prophecy and making Paul into the Lisan al-Gaib, and getting everyone on Team Paul.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, she kind of tries to step back and forth across the fence, where she's like, we need to embrace it here, and she's like, whoa, back it up. You're going a little too hard, Paul. And she'll push him and then pull him back. In this, she just pushes him from the start of the film all the way to the end. She pushes.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of nuance is missed in this film. So part of that, it comes to my next point of writing decisions that I don't understand. Why truncate the timeline? So they turned it from 3-ish years in the desert to 1 or less than 1. Because
it's within 9 months because the baby's never born.
Yeah. And so what that did, in my opinion, was it stole something. It stole relationship building.
Yeah.
Because if somebody joins your village and you live with them for multiple years and they prove themselves time and time again, the relationship between him and Chani gets to be built stronger.
Yeah.
They had a child and lost the child.
R.I.P. Leto too, who doesn't happen at all. Yeah.
And basically Stilgar is his new father figure, and Lady Jessica's character gets to be a lot more nuanced because she's building power over the course of years.
Yeah.
She's doing it full on Bene Gesserit style.
Yeah.
There's more relationships, which probably would have been cut from the movie, like with Jameis's wife, Hera, who becomes his servant, but also becomes like a sounding board and a conversation partner, kind of like Fenring.
So Hera, I've thought a lot about Hera, because she is an important character, but she is also redundant to Chaney.
Yeah.
In that she is one of the key people that teaches Paul about Fremen culture, and Chaney gets all of it. This.
And I get that. For a movie, that's a perfect character cut.
Yeah.
But I guess...
I think she's there
she's just
unnamed.
sort of standing there, So I think basically this truncated timeline, this actually led to the weirdness of Chaney's character and Jessica's character.
Yeah.
If there had been multiple years, they could have been way more smooth, way more... way less friction, way more integrated. Alia would have been born. She'd be the weird child and all of that. And so I feel like that truncated timeline, it added a sense of urgency that was never actually needed.
Yeah.
The sense of urgency comes when they start launching the attacks.
Right.
So they could have done as much setting building as they wanted, or just be like, time passes.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I don't really understand understand the truncated timeline, we should say it's Denis Villeneuve and John Spites are the two writers on this. I don't know why the truncated timeline was introduced, and I'm not sure that it helped things along either. Honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting decision to make, and there are a bunch of other little tiny things that don't really bother me that much. Like, for example, when Gurney tells Paul that the great houses won't acknowledge his ascension, that's not how it went in the books. His threat to destroy the spice fields was the Spacing Guild was absolutely terrified and gave in, which caused the great houses to basically shut up. They didn't specifically agree, but they also didn't object. And so basically that idea is just fuel for the next movie.
Yeah.
That he has to subjugate them.
Well, then that doesn't quite match up with my recollection, because then what is the jihad for? What is the purpose of going to war with the whole universe if the great houses got on board?
Well, I don't exactly know, because Paul doesn't know. Like it's a because they wouldn't go to war just to get the houses on board anyway. Like, I think that's a false premise.
No,
the Fremen wouldn't jump on the ships and go. But basically, Paul has said that he's going to be the master of mankind. He's going to be the emperor, like in Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, I think that is the same as the books. That is why Muad'Dib's jihad happens, is because the other great houses refuse to recognize his ascension.
I guess we're going to have to disagree. I didn't reread the novel, but I did a bunch of reading about what were like every change from the novel to the movie and this was one of them that kept coming up.
Yeah.
Because in the novels, the great houses were essentially silent.
Yeah, because because the great houses were not there.
Yes.
That's definitely a change, because the Baron Harkonnen, he summons the great houses there when he sees the Emperor coming, right? And so the great houses come, and that's not an event that happens in the book. But there still is that break, I think, where the great houses do not recognize him, because he basically just pulled a coup, right? So there's no reason why they would recognize him.
Sure, but yeah, he had reasons. The Emperor was implicit in killing his house, but I think
that's not common knowledge across the universe.
True, that's true. I think that the point of the crusade is that it gets away from him and it gets he can no longer control it. It basically just spirals. He's no longer the leader. He's just the name, that he doesn't actually have control, and they begin crusading in his name despite his wishes.
Well, and that's the thing, because we don't have those inner monologues. In the book, he kind of has that realization while he's dueling with Fade that the jihad was going to happen no matter what. Essentially, all of this time that he spent leading the Fremen, making himself into the Muad'Dib or the Lisan al-Gaib, if he dies, he's the martyr for the jihad.
For them, yeah.
And if he lives, he's the figurehead for it. But no matter what, he's already started that ball rolling.
Yeah, they're already screwed.
And all of the time that he spent, like, I can't go south, because if I go south, then this is going to happen, is more time building his legend, essentially.
Yeah.
And all of the time that he stalls, and this is a recurring theme in Dune Messiah also, like, the more Paul stalls and stagnates out, the more he ensures the thing he's trying to avoid happens.
Yeah.
He makes it, and it just gets worse. Like, because there's a scene, like, he has a dream where he wakes up in the still tent with Chani, and he tells her, like, I saw this dream. If I go south, there'll be millions dead. And then the next time he has the vision, it's up to billions.
Yeah, I wish they'd done something different in those visions. I felt like they were the same vision, and it wasn't it wasn't as vast. It didn't demonstrate how the paths of time, how he sees them.
Yeah.
It was a little underdone.
Yeah, I mean, they're very obscure. Like, it's just sort of like people dying and a desolation and everything.
It's like a bad dream.
I'm glad you brought up the threads of time, because I had a realization when I went back to the book. Very early on, Paul describes events from this movie as a possible timeline. And that freed me up quite a bit to appreciate this movie on its own.
Oh, man.
Because he said that. He's like, I see a future where I confront the Baron and I say, hello, grandfather. And like, basically the ending that we see in this movie, which is not the ending of the book, where Aaliyah kills the Baron. And this film fits into one of his dark timelines that he's avoiding.
So we fully agree. This is fanfic.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's okay fanfic.
I mean, okay.
It's okay. There are so many changes that I hated, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the visuals and all of that.
Okay.
Pretty much nothing bad to say here.
Yeah.
The music, the movie is absolutely beautiful. It's the cinematography, the sets, the costumes, the props is just fucking flawless.
Yeah, I think if this movie had come out last year when it was originally intended to,
it would have won an Oscar.
It would have been very disruptive to the Oscar race. I think it's better off being in this year and not having to compete with Oppenheimer. But one of the awards that I would almost put money on right now, having hardly seen any movies this year, is Greg Fraser winning for cinematography. I think that's damn near a shoo-in from February.
I think it's essentially the cinematography and the production and all this stuff. Man, it's basically perfect.
Yeah, Greg Fraser. The infrared camera work on Gady Prime.
Oh yeah,
is just we've never seen anything like this. They invented a new technique that we're going to see copied badly over and over again in movies going forward. I think on the other side, it's going to inspire some other non-traditional filmmakers to do interesting things. But Greg Fraser, his cinematography in this movie was incredible, like just next level.
Yeah, and the props and sets and whatnot were. I love I love Fade's armor. I mean, it was like Raban's, but it was way more sleek. And
so that's Jacqueline West is the costume designer, Patrice Vermette, production designer, and Donald Mowat, head of department makeup, hair, and prosthetics.
So good.
In concert, these people are just cooking with gas. Like, they made something so visually unique and really, truly exceptional. And the Jacqueline West had to go back to the drawing board on the costumes when the infrared camera stuff got introduced because none of the materials she had chosen beforehand photographed well in infrared. So she had to rejigger the costumes to get that all to work, and it was all worth it. It was all incredible. Yeah,
this movie and the previous one might be the best looking movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that called to mind to me some interview I was hearing with Quentin Tarantino where he was talking about cinematographers that shoot digitally just don't want to have to light their films properly. And I was like, oh God, this just shows how wrong he is, because the attention to lighting in this movie is incredible too. Because whenever possible, they use natural lighting. So like when they're in the Siege Tabir, it's all light. It's
so beautiful, light coming in naturally.
Through like the cave roof, and I don't know if it's being reflected down or how they're getting it into the rooms. But it just looks incredible, and everything is done the hard way. You know, like there's no shortcuts, like we fix it in post. Like it's all done with such attention to detail and it all shows through on the screen. Like, this movie just looks gorgeous.
Yeah, there's nothing bad to say. It just looks so amazing. I can't complain in the least. I loved every set they had. It was so good. And the costumes, like I've said that already, but like Christopher Walken's costume, like it's like almost evocative of like a Chinese emperor. Like it's really cool.
Yeah. So what did I put in my notes? Because I was saying how like the distinct cultures of the different worlds. So when they're on what's his called, Khitan?
Carino? No, that's House Carino. I can't remember what.
I think it's Khitan or something along those lines. My notes, it's in a different section of my notes. It's like somewhere like a Zen garden mashup with a Mediterranean villa, like these two things. So it's all flowing robes and like and delicate patterns and everything. And then you go to Gedi Prime, and with their black sun, there's no light at all. Everything is black and white. Even when you go indoors and they have glow globes and stuff, it's almost black and white. Like, so that culture.
I love Gedi Prime. Yeah, so cool.
They're like, austere industrial culture versus like the delicate culture on Khitan. Forgive me if I'm getting the name of the planet wrong. And then Arrakis has its culture too, with lots of stone and like the harsh sun of the desert and everything, and just everything looks distinct.
And they look so different. Like obviously the black and white of Gedi Prime, and then the Emperor's home, and it's like beautiful but cool colors. Like everything is cool. And then you go to Arrakis and they're all warm tones. We have these browns and oranges and tans and all of these just really beautiful warm tones. And it just absolutely kills.
It's Khitan. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, I think the visuals can't be overstated. That was definitely probably the best part of the movie. There were also some like rock star performances, but we'll get there.
Oh yeah.
So audio. The audio in this movie, I loved the sound effects, how they made everything sound so real and visceral. Like when he activates the shield, the visual of it is cool, but it's there because of the sound.
Yeah, you feel that buzz.
Yeah,
and in the the Dolby Atmos in the IMAX theater, you feel it. Like in your body, you can feel that buzz.
Yeah, it's like you feel it like on your skin. Like it's like you have a shield.
Yeah, and so you've got, once again, Hans Zimmer as the composer, Richard King as the sound designer, and never have you had a sound designer and a composer working so closely together. I think they step over each other's line fluidly and delve into the other side.
Yeah, they spared no expense, and they really didn't. They didn't cut any corners on the audio for this movie. The music is obviously masterful. Hans Zimmer is a master. Yeah. And I loved all of the extra, like the sci-fi sounds. They're so good, but not cliche.
I know. I was listening, like like, how like to say like Inuit people have all these different words for snow. I have now heard so many different sounds of sand.
Yes.
Like there's gently like tinkling sand as it kind of falls down the dune. There's like sand storms. There's sand blasting. Like,
you know exactly what a sand walk sounds like.
Yeah, it's like so many different sand sounds. Like it's not just one, like it's not just sand. No, it's like. It's so much, and it's so immersive, and that's another one of those ones. I think next year, Academy Awards time, you're going to see Richard King go up there and get an award for sound design.
I hope so,
because the sound in this movie is bonkers.
Yeah, it's super good. It's just every single thing, and one of the things that really just blew me away was when you're watching these crazy like sci-fi vessels flying over the spice fields, and you see these laser anti-tank weapons like slicing them in half. Like, how do you even make up sounds for that?
Yeah,
like it works. It's so perfect.
I don't know if I've seen him talk about the laser guns. So like the sound of the sandworm is he literally takes the little microphone and held it down his throat.
Wow.
And went and like made that sound with the microphone like in his mouth.
Dang, that's dedication.
Yeah, and it's just like, and hopefully that didn't sound awful for you, cultists, when I did that into the mic.
Just don't worry, I can adjust
You can adjust the sandworm sound, yeah. But it's just like very innovative. And same thing with Zimmer's score, inventing instruments. You know what I mean? A baliset's not a real thing, although that's easier to conceive than some of the, like the Fremen instrumentation that he invented for these movies.
Yeah. And Gurney's baliset sounded great.
Yeah. Oh, God. That was so... When I love Gurney anyway. And
yeah, he's one of my favorites.
We're getting towards the performances, so we'll transition gradually into that. But I'm so glad because his baliset scene from the first movie was cut.
Yeah.
And so that we got just a little bit of him playing it. And same thing with the Lynch movie. I've seen pictures of Patrick Stewart holding the baliset, but again, there was no scene with him playing it in the film. So I'm glad we finally got the troubadour warrior to play his baliset and sing a song. And Josh Brolin wrote that song with Hans Zimmer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Josh Brolin played guitar and stuff.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty cool detail.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's talk about the performances, because this is kind of aside from me bitching about the writing, this is the meat and potatoes of this, or maybe the dessert.
Let's pause. Bitching about the writing. I want to dig into that just a little bit more. Are you bitching about the writing or unhappy with the changes? Because I think there's a slight distinction there.
So I think that there were a couple of things that really pushed up against one another that made the story worse. I think the timeline truncated is simply worse. It actually, it just makes things, it makes the story less believable that he could have fully gone native and recruited multiple millions of people into his side
in 8 months or whatever.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And also, I just think that I enjoyed Chani more in her when she wasn't the enemy of Paul.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they tried to make Paul do a heel turn in this. But in the books, she always, she hated the decision he was forced to make, but loved him still.
Right.
And did not abandon him.
Yeah.
She was dedicated to him and counseled him very much against these things, but she stayed strong.
Okay.
And I just liked that story more. And so it's just about what I liked more. I thought that I could take or leave the. I would leave it, but I could take or leave the fundamentalist generation gap. Blah blah blah. Fine, you're modernizing the story. That is okay. But and even some of the jokes that were thrown in, like Stilgar, like Lizan Al-Gaib is too humble. He won't say it. Like, that was hilarious.
Those are the best. Yeah.
And so I could take that. That's fine. But I would say if I was really, really narrowing it down, it's I don't like how they truncated the timeline, and I really don't like this version of Chani.
Okay.
And it wasn't Zendaya's fault.
Yeah.
I'm going to point that out. I'm not a hater. I think she did a great job.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way they wrote the character.
Okay. We're clear on that. So now let's talk about Timothée Chalamet.
The best.
I love him so much. I love this kid so much.
He's an elf, dude, and he's amazing.
He is so watchable. I love him in literally everything I see him in. Like, we watched Little Women the other day.
Have you seen Willy Wonka? Is that any good?
I haven't seen it yet. I've had to not to tangent too much on it. I'm not a big Charlie and the Chocolate Factory guy. Lisa isn't. I am a big Timothée Chalamet guy, and so I want to watch it, and I've had the hardest time convincing her. But now that it's on Max and we can watch it for free, probably tomorrow. I'll probably watch Wonka tomorrow.
I like watching movies at home better anyway.
Yeah, I know that about you, but I really wanted to go see it in the theater, and I could not convince it. Like, there was a few Saturdays where I was like, let's go see Wonka, and she's like, You go see Wonka.
Yeah, well, while we're tangenting, Carrie won't go see the new King Kong and Godzilla movie with me, but my buddy DJ said he would go. So
nice.
At least I know I'll get to see that movie.
I'll go see it with you.
Oh,
yeah, we can go do that. I mean,
for sure. Let's do it.
I already have tickets to see it once, but I will see it again.
Yeah, I'm down.
I would have seen Dune again.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see it again too.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chalamet is so good in this role. Like, I love him when he's doing his dictator moves.
Yeah.
Like, when he decides to just become the casual fascist,
yeah,
it's like amazing. And he's like, okay, then I'm a fucking Harkonnen.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. He realized who he is.
When he adopts this like real long-legged stride when he goes into like the Cave of Birds to go and basically seize power, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And just gets up there and just like, no one here will stand against me. And everyone stands up, like
grabs their knives.
They're like, whoa, now we have to. And then he just starts like, he's like calling people out.
Yeah. What about you and your grandmother?
Yeah. Like, and he's like, oh, at least Son Algaim knows about my dead grandma. Yeah, and he uses his prescient knowledge like just to drive this all home.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the presence he has when he does those scenes. And like there's many scenes in the movie of him dead center in the camera, either walking towards or walking away from the camera with his cloak blowing in the wind. And they're homaging a movie that I love, Akira. That's totally Tetsuo. Like when he does that, as his power grows and grows, he does those scenes. But like,
it's also very Eric Draven.
Oh yeah, the crow. The crow doesn't blow in the wind.
Yeah,
like
that's true. He has the trench coat though.
He does have the trench coat. And I remember thinking like it's one of those things where repetition either makes you tired of something or makes you like start to love it and crave it more. And I was like, how many scenes are we going to see with him like head down walking towards the camera? And then pretty soon you're like, oh yeah, another scene where he's head down walking towards the camera.
So he's about to kick some ass.
Like, oh, and this one has a big worm behind it. Like they're all so good.
Yeah. He just did a really great job in this. The dramatic scenes, the action scenes, like, oh my God, how about the fights?
Yeah.
Like this guy, they made him do a lot of running.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God, and we haven't even talked about like the worm riding scene or any of that stuff with him running across the top of the sand dune and jumping onto the worm's back and like getting the hooks in, like all that.
It was very cool.
Yeah. Flawless. So cool. No notes.
Do you think this guy's going to get an award? I mean, he really should. He's so good.
Does he have one yet? No, I don't think he has one.
He doesn't have an Oscar.
I bet because of the way, because the Academy is very political, right?
Yeah, he's not old enough. He hasn't paid his dues.
No, I bet he's nominated for Messiah for sure.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's sort of like how like they held off on the Lord of the Rings movies until the third one to hand out awards. I think the next one is the one where they start handing out awards for like above the line people in Dune.
They're like, okay, you earned it. 3 movies in a row.
3 movies of Paul Atreides. Here's your nomination. That doesn't mean he wins, but he'll get a nomination.
I mean, I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say that he eclipsed just ever so slightly Kyle MacLachlan.
Oh,
just a little bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love Kyle Mack's performance.
It's just so good.
Like, and the thing about my problem with the Kyle Mack is that he's just too old. Like,
yeah, he's not a young kid anymore.
He's not believable as a teenager at all. And obviously, Timothée Chalamet is not a teenager either. He's in his 20s.
But he's just kind of a small, slim dude.
Yeah. But I think Kyle MacLachlan was probably closer to 30 when they did Dune. And he looks like a grown-ass man. And so in a lot of those teenage scenes, it's just all a little hard to take.
Yeah.
But he cut a dashing figure in his still suit.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah.
All right, so next one up is Zendaya, I guess. She's the other lead, basically.
Yeah.
I think she did a great job in this role. She did what they asked her. She was very badass. She was very defiant. She was the questioner of the ways. She was, she was sweet when she needed to be and fierce when she needed to be. I just thought she had a really good performance.
Yeah, their moments alone, like when they're in the still tent or out on the dunes together, they're so good, so romantic. I said she's the emotional and moral core of the movie.
No, that's Lady Jessica.
You think? Oh man, that's a rotten core.
That's a rotten core. Ooh.
Not that I mean, it's great. She's great.
Oh
but
yeah,
that's not a good moral core to have. She's like, jihad, yes please.
Bring it.
Foot to the pedal. She's like, I know I survive all this, and I end up the governor of Caladan.
Yeah, she's already defied the Bene Gesserit and had a son instead of a daughter. Yeah, she's not a moral.
Yeah, she's writing her own code at this point. I was gonna say about Zendaya, there's something about her that irritates boomers and older Gen X men. She's one of these women who,
why?
Like I saw these stupid memes where it's like 4 pictures of her scowling, and they have different emotions listed under them, as though she has no range at all. And it's such a shallow criticism because she's an incredible actor. She can say more with a sideways look than some people can do with a whole monologue. Yeah,
I think that's just sexism and racism from old people. Fuck them.
Yeah. She is. I think your opinions as far as like the story changes are all perfectly valid, but like you said, her performance is
and if they had written Chani like the book, she would have done that masterfully as well.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
It's So I think she did a great job. She did not outshine Chalamet, who just did a masterful performance. I mean, he's the best performance in the movie, hands down. But there's just like a litany of amazing performances.
All right. Who do you have next?
I had Rebecca Ferguson.
Me too.
Because she delivered. Her performance has nuanced, sinister vibes. Like she's doing like the mean mom, also the like plotting witch.
Yeah.
And it's like Jessica is one of my favorite characters from the books because she's so methodical and sinister.
Yeah.
Like, I just love this character. And I think that Rebecca Ferguson just pulled it off to a T.
Yeah. I think in the book, it's a little less clear how sinister and manipulative she is.
Because she does it over 3 years. Her moves are slow. There's a lot of attaboys between the get 'em.
Yeah. And she, in the movie, she uses the voice a lot. Like over things that like, it doesn't necessarily
get me a water.
She's like, is there anything I can get for you, Reverend? Water now.
Yeah, it's like seriously.
Yeah. So she's a little quick to use the voice, but it just drives that home that the Bene Gesserit. This is how they pull the strings of the universe.
Yeah, for sure.
And she is a Reverend Mother now, and she's acting like it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the voice, when Paul silences that Reverend Mother when he meets the Emperor, that was the shit.
I don't know why. I love that scene so much. I love it in the book. I love it in the Lynch version. Mm-hmm. Lynch goes extra hard with it because he like drives her into the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like,
she's like,
he's like, I can kill you with the word, and it's like, well, it's a bit much, but it's still, there's something about when she gets silenced that's just so satisfying.
Oh yeah, speaking of Lady Jessica and the Bene Gesserit in general, that was one of the things that it kind of irked me about the truncated timeline. We didn't get to teach like Bene Gesserit kung fu to the Ferryman. That happened in the books, and that shit was dope.
Yeah, because it's alluded to in the first film when Stilgar, like when she kung fu's him, and he's like, "You didn't tell me you were a weirding woman and a fighter."
Yeah, why didn't we get some weirding way?
Yeah, we
got no weirding way.
We were never shown. I mean,
we'll probably get it in Messiah.
Maybe. I mean, they definitely up the tactics and stuff of the Fremen.
Yeah, they definitely
we
fought
never
better.
see like Paul and Jessica doing kung fu.
There's
school.
no like blurring and weird shit happening. So anyway,
we could use some weirding way. I agree with that. But
so next up, who do you got?
Josh Brolin as Gurney Halleck.
Oh man, that's not who I put next, but I certainly did put him on my list. I love that role. He's so good.
I love it. I love that character, and I love the way Josh Brolin plays him. And, I mentioned earlier that he wrote and arranged that song with Hans Zimmer, his the Still Suit is Full of Piss song. He does so much. He's got pretty little screen time. He comes in like the third act of the film. He's got a very little screen time and not a ton of dialogue. But he makes the most of it. Like similar to what I say about Zendaya, like just acting with his face. Like he says so much with so little. Like the way he delivers,
for sure.
The "you young pup," and he's got that quiver in his voice, like because he's been lost since all this stuff happened. He hasn't known what to do with himself. He's just been a spice smuggler, and his whole purpose was protecting the Atreides family.
Yeah, and then when he's ordered to go south and protect Jessica by Paul, and Paul like doubles down and orders him, and
that's an order, Gurney Halleck.
And he switches and he accepts it and agrees, and it's just like the acting subtlety that Josh Brolin uses as he shifts from "this is my buddy" to "this is my Duke."
Yeah,
like
he looks like a kicked dog in that moment.
Yeah,
and it's like it hurts because
he loves the kid.
He loves the kid. Yeah, like this is because the Beast Raban killed his whole family, and
like Paul's all he has.
Paul is all he has, literally. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the performance, and one of the things, like I was talking to Carrie about this. One of the things I love about Josh Brolin is he's extremely handsome and very very rugged and whatnot, but he has a certain thing about his look where he looks like kind of like a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like if a normal guy was a 10 out of 10.
He's very rugged.
And so it's like he looks like someone you can very much identify with. You could certainly see yourself having a beer with a guy like that. I don't know if you could ever have a beer with Chalamet. He's kind of an ethereal creature. He might fly away on gossamer wings.
Yeah.
But like Brolin will literally bro down.
Yeah. But I think.
Did you see him on the Late Show? He did a big long interview with not John Oliver.
Seth Meyers?
No.
Stephen Colbert?
Stephen Colbert, yeah. Okay. He did, and he evidently is buddies with Stephen Colbert, and they send each other videos back and forth of themselves while they're like fishing or doing things.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor and the Cultists, go to YouTube and look up the recent Colbert interview with Josh Brolin where he's promoting Dune. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like Josh Brolin is a riot.
Josh Brolin is very funny. He's very funny on Twitter. He's an old school like punk rock guy, like from LA in the 80s. Just really cool dude.
Yeah, he's a winner. He's definitely.
We
a
love
winner.
Josh Brolin here on the Nightshade Call.
He should join us on this podcast someday. All right, so the next up that I had was Austin Butler.
Me too.
Austin Butler was just a phenomenon in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he's like a force of nature when he enters the screen. It's just crazy.
I already am a fan. I loved him in Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
He's unrecognizable in this movie. Like when he comes out, like, and he's getting like his war paint on, like, and you see his back, I was like, he rebuilt himself. Like, that's not Elvis's back. That's Fade Routha's back.
He's on the gear.
Yeah. Like he is so jacked in this movie, and then he looks so creepy with the bald cap and everything.
Oh, and the eyebrows and everything.
Oh,
oof. Yeah.
So creepy, and just,
And the action scenes that he does, the knife fights, the multiple knife fights that he does are just fantastic. They're really good knife fights. Like the choreography, the fight choreography in this movie was fucking sick. And Austin Butler was extremely athletic. He obviously trained a lot to do this.
Yeah.
And I highly enjoyed it. Like, I loved the scene where the Baron gave him his birthday gift of not drugging the Atreides soldier.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Which is like it's a change from the book, but it's a very like subtle change.
Yeah, it's a good change.
Because
it upped the drama.
In the book, he was the one that because he was plotting with Thufir Hawat, he was the one that chose to not have the prisoner drugged. And they just sort of moved the impetus to the Baron.
Yeah, make him a little more sinister.
But the core of it ends up the same, that he fights this guy in the arena and the guy is not drugged.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fight, all the stuff with him and his pets, his little cannibal ladies that he keeps around. It's fascinating. Like, he physically transformed himself. The accent, he just himself watched a lot of Stellan Skarsgård's films, and Skarsgård didn't know he was going to do that. And then he's like, he sounds like me when I was younger. Like, he was like he was just sort of like shocked when that happened.
He just like channels a Swedish guy.
Yeah, like he just does this kind of perfect Stellan Skarsgård impression, and it's like, yeah, fascinating stuff. And Fade is another Kwisatz Haderach candidate.
Yeah,
right?
He's another Ubermensch.
Yeah, and so he's psychotic, but he's not unhinged. And he is, he's calculating, but he's not cold. He's not one-dimensional at all.
Yeah, he's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, Austin Butler or Sting?
I mean, iconic as Sting is everything about the Lynch movie is fun and I love it. But nothing is better. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's performances are better in that movie.
Oh man.
The only person, like, when I revisit the book, the only person who isn't totally overwritten by the Villeneuve version in my head is Dr. Kynes.
Yeah,
because he's always described much more like the way God, I can't think of the guy's name, the guy that played him in the Lynch version.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the Villeneuve version has supplanted kind of everyone in my head.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd have to really think about it to see if there are any superior performances. One thing I will say in the Lynch version that I wanted more of in the Villeneuve version was the Spacing Guild. We didn't get enough Spacing Guild.
Well, because I always thought that stuff was very weird because I only knew the first book. But the navigator they show in the Lynch Dune is not miles away from the way Edric the Navigator is described in Dune Messiah. Yeah. Like, as far as like float, he's much bigger in the Lynch version, but like essentially like a fish man floating in a tank. Yeah. Like, that is exactly how Edric is described. And I was like, oh, so he was dipping into book 2 for some of the stuff in that movie. Yeah.
All right, so who do you got next?
Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan.
That's who I had.
Okay.
I thought the performance wasn't. She didn't have a ton of screen time. Yeah. But I thought it was nuanced and interesting.
Yeah, I like Florence Pugh a lot. I think between Chalamet, Zendaya, Butler, and Pugh, this is the cream of the millennial Gen Z cusper actor crop. Like, these are all the heavy hitters of their generation.
Very good. I agree. I think that her performance was very good. It was very believable. I liked the many looks of Princess Irulan. Yeah. I thought that was cool how she had so much variation in her style and costuming, and
very cool costumes.
And I love the technology stuff because she's a chronicler. I love all that stuff. It's very cool.
Because the books are fresh in my mind, fresher than the movie. Jessica says this shitty thing about her having literary aspirations in the first book, which is funny because all through that book, you're getting excerpts of her writing.
Her books, yeah.
And then at the very end of the book, Jessica's like, well, she has literary aspirations. Like, she says this thing, and it's like, yeah, well, she actually writes quite a few chronicles.
Yeah, she's pretty busy.
Yeah, and so this is another one Villeneuve said, he basically gave her the same pitch that he gave Zendaya for the first movie, where he's like, it's not a big part in this film, but in the next movie, it's a much bigger part.
Yeah,
so
for sure. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah,
where she's the Empress.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
And then next on my list, I had Dave Bautista.
Me too.
Because, we talked about Bautista a lot last time, and as Raban, he's amazing in this as well. And I love the change that they gave Gurney Man his vengeance in the movie.
It's true, because that's... no one is happy at the end of the book, Dune. Like, no one gets what they want, and Gurney is denied his vengeance. The Beast Raban dies off screen.
Yeah, so lame.
And I was glad to get to see them fight. And I also liked that Raban is such a fucking bully and then actually a coward when he...
Yeah, he's like running away and shit.
Yeah, because there's this, the Fremen attack one of the spice depots, and Raban is like, all right, everyone in the Ornithopters, we go there right now while Muad'Dib is there, and I'm going to go kill him. And he gets off the Ornithopter and goes out there, like, and he's like, Muad'Dib, face me. And Muad'Dib comes out of the sand.
And he just leaves.
And Raban turns around and hoofs it in the way that big muscular guys run, which is very awkwardly. It's like watching a turtle run. And just barely gets away with his skin. Like, a Fremen is on his ass as the Ornithopter flies off.
I did love that, how he had his moment, but then he ran the fuck away.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, he loves to kill IT guys. But
who doesn't? Fuck IT.
But he does not like to face down the Lisan Agaib. Yeah. He's like, nope, never mind.
Yeah, the combat in this movie was great, and despite the lack of Weirding Way, I'm glad for a lot of the changes regarding the combat. Like, we didn't need Fade to cheapen that fight with poisoned knives and nonsense. I liked it how it was just straight up, how he volunteered to be the champion for the Emperor, like, on the spot. Like, let's fight now.
Yeah.
I like that. It made the character more badass. And I liked how Paul never really used the voice to win a fight.
Yeah.
You don't need to. He didn't need to roll in and just start blowing dudes up with the voice.
Yeah, and then that would undermine himself. You know what I mean? Like, if he did that, then the authority, of the trial by combat is lost.
Yeah, just in any fight. He basically never uses it in fights, when he could have.
Well, that's part of how he earns his credibility with the Fremen.
Yeah, he's real.
He goes out there and is always in the shit with them right out front and puts his ass on the line every time.
For 3 years, he's a desert fighter, not 8 months.
Yeah. He has to do a lot faster in 8 months.
Yeah. So who else you got?
Christopher Walken as the Emperor Shaddam.
Yeah. That was such a bit part, but I love that they got Walken to do it because he's basically retired at this point. And
so I didn't know what Walken we were going to get because there's levels. There's levels to this. And this was a much more subtle, understated, sinister Walken, and I was glad.
I like that he was extremely like he was coldly vicious.
Yeah, he has that like shitty line to Paul where he's like basically says, your father had to die because he was a man of the heart, and it's like. You wish you were dealing with the man of the heart now because Paul's not that dude.
Yeah, Paul is about to own you, and that's going to be sad.
Yeah, you would be much better off with Duke Leto, who liked you and would have dealt with you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and that gets talked about a bit in the film and a bit more in the book that Shaddam liked Duke Leto.
Yes.
Everybody liked Duke Leto, and that was actually the problem, that he was kind of he is Oscar Isaac and was just too good looking, too charismatic, and too like followable.
Yeah, everybody
to exist in the universe.
Everyone would rather the Emperor.
Right. And so the Emperor had to remove him off the board because he was too big of a challenge to his authority. And Paul, again, the book stuff, it's often mentioned how Paul takes more after his grandfather, who was a much harsher person.
Yeah, he fought the bulls and everything.
Yeah, and Paul, like, he reminds me of his grandfather now. Like Thufir, it's because we don't have Thufir, because he's the one that's always, he served the old Duke, and he's like, Paul's a lot like the old Duke. He says it quite a few times. There's
a few missing links in here for that, but so I was thinking like who else would I cast as the Emperor? I was thinking like a really amazing Emperor would be Willem Dafoe.
I love Willem Dafoe and everything. He's my favorite, so I second that. But the Emperor is much younger in the book.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're doing a book Emperor, you want someone in their 40s.
Who would you go with?
Oh, geez.
Tim Curry.
A young Tim Curry? Sure. It's tough. I don't know.
Woody Harrelson.
This again, none of these people are in their 40s.
Oh, they're all old dudes.
They're all old dudes.
Man. That's true. I can't think of any.
Think it. Like, I mean, you would think Oscar Isaac. Like, that's the kind of the go. Oh, if you want to have someone that seems like Oscar Isaac's best buddy, it's Pedro Pascal.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So
we could have the Mandalorian.
Yeah, he would be the perfect book Emperor for sure.
Yeah, and he's got the charisma to do it.
Yeah, but I like the old Emperor storytelling wise. It just goes to show like this. He's a weak old man. You know what I mean?
And he's very old at this point because he's had all of the spice for all this time to keep himself young forever.
Yeah. So he's a very old man, and he's not the smartest guy in the room. He's not smarter than his daughter.
No.
He's not smarter than the Reverend Mother. Like, he's not.
Yeah, fuck that Reverend Mother. I just want to say, like, fuck the Bene Gesserit. There's some snakes.
I mean, so that's a good setup for Léa Seydoux as Lady Margot Finring.
Oh, yeah, that was a great performance. I love that scene. Yeah. It was a small part, but it was awesome.
Yeah, like, and she just comes through. We get a different take on the voice. Mm-hmm. Because Fade is just sort of like bamboozled by her, where it's like he's standing behind her, and then all of a sudden she's behind him, and he doesn't really know what happened, and then they're in his bedroom, and he's like, "Wait, what?" Like the whole She just like she does the Gom Jabbar and this seduction dance with him. Mm-hmm. And just plays him like a fiddle, and he doesn't even really understand what happened.
Yeah, she represented something in the movie that is present in the books that we hadn't really seen enough of. It's that the Bene Gesserit get their way not just by being the wise crone counselors and whatnot. They're supposed to be like also badass warriors, but mostly just perfect seductress, like magic style, like total enchantress with like just with magic wiles, and you don't really see that much in the movies. Like, you don't have to think that Lady Jessica was using magic to seduce the Duke.
Plato. Yeah. Well, because they're in love.
They love each other. She's pretty, she's nice, etc. Whatever. She could easily doesn't need magic.
Yeah.
So like when we have Lady Fenring seducing Fade, I'm like, wow, that's cool. That's like an element of the setting that we just don't have enough of.
Yeah. And I think it was just executed excellently. And I knew the name, you know what I mean? And I've probably seen her face, but I don't think I've ever seen her in anything. But like from this little taste, I want to see more. I think she was really good.
All right.
You got anyone else?
That's all I got.
Oh, geez. I've got more. So,
all right.
Suhela Yacob, who plays Shishaki. Fremen warrior, Chani's bestie. It's a minor character from the books, but it's a guy, and they've just flipped it and made it into a girl. Similar to Margot Finring, I was like, I want to see more of this actor, like, because she's really strong, and I was very sad when Fade kills her. Like, from our little scenes you get with her, like, I was invested in her, and when they go to Siege Tabir and she's the last person left
and she
there,
just gets wrecked.
And I'm like, oh no, not her. Like, she was awesome.
But having it be someone die who you care about.
It has to be someone you care about.
Yeah. It adds impact.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Stellan Skarsgård is Baron Vladimir Harkonnen.
Yeah, that's true. We talked a bit about him in the first episode of this, and it was really good. His performance was excellent.
Yeah, he's so creepy and imposing, and I don't know what it is about having a big fat guy floating around that makes him so much scarier. Like, there's something about being heavy and weightless at the same time that makes him, like, hard to grasp onto. Like, you don't know what he's going to do. It just makes him unpredictable and scarier.
Yeah, I mean, he's an amazing actor, and there's a reason he's survived in the in the scene for so long.
Yeah,
and all his sons.
Yeah, and all his many sons, all the Skarsgårds. Charlotte Rampling as the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohayam.
Oh yeah, that's a classic character. You get a lot more of her in the books than you do in this movie.
Again, just like, it's a small part, but she's so evil, and like there's there's just a few moments like where she's talking with Princess Irulan, and then at the end, Jessica kind of telepathically gives her, like, you backed the wrong side, and she's like, ugh, we're the Bene Gesserit. There are no sides.
Yeah.
There's everyone, and then there's us, and we pull the strings on everyone else. Like, she's like, no matter what happens, we win.
Yeah.
And like,
we created all of these sides, so it doesn't matter who wins.
Yeah, that's how we operate. And you're Reverend Mother now, so get with the program. Like, you know what I mean? And she's great. I mean, MVP for me, Javier Bardem as Stilgar.
Yeah,
He's
was
my absolute fave.
I love that character in the books so much. I loved the performance. Stilgar was just, the first half of the movie, he's just perfect. He's everywhere, and then he kind of falls to the background after that. But
yeah,
he's really good.
He's so good. And this was Javier Bardem said, Stilgar was always his favorite character in the book, and he said Denis Villeneuve called him he's like, I want to offer you a part in Dune. Do you know what character I want you to play? And he's like, Stilgar. Like, he just knew. Like, yeah, no, that's me. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
And he embodies the character, and like his little pep talk before Paul rides the worm. He's like, do nothing fancy. He's like, you're brave. We all know that. Be direct. He's like, or else you'll shame my teachings. And he's like, and it's just, it's almost word for word from the book, but like he just imbues it with so much character. It's like the text comes alive in his mouth, like the way he delivers.
He really embodies Stilgar. Like he gives a performance that is like he grabs the character and he is the character.
Yeah. And there's a sad moment in the book, and it happens in the movie, but it's not remarked upon in the same way, where Paul talks about how Stilgar goes from being his friend to his worshiper, and Paul's sad about it because the friendship meant so much to him.
Yeah.
But as he really becomes the prophet or whatever, the friendship just can't exist in the same way.
Yeah.
As when Stilgar was his mentor. So yeah, for me, Javier Bardem is the MVP.
That's a great one.
And then last one I want to mention for sure is Anya Taylor-Joy with her surprise appearance as grown-up Aaliyah
in the visions, future Aaliyah. I would like to see more of her in the next movie.
Yeah, and Anya Taylor-Joy, she's like 27 years old now. Aaliyah in Dune Messiah is 15, but I think like that's probably in keeping with how they've aged Paula.
Yeah, they'll bend it.
Yeah. I think there's going to probably be a bigger gap of time between Dune Part 2 and Dune Messiah than is present in the book, like so that the ages make more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew she was in the movie, but I didn't know who she was playing. And when she shows up, and I was like, oh shit, she's the creepy baby. Are we not getting the creepy baby?
Yeah.
And
creepy baby.
No creepy baby. No, we only got grown up Aaliyah.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. Like in the sci-fi series, Aaliyah is a really cool character in there because you get a lot more of her.
She's almost like the co-ruler with Paula and Messiah. Like they're very much a team.
Mm-hmm. I really like the character. Yeah. She's very cool. So I was just curious. So which character, if you were going to play one in the movie, like who would you want to be? Who would you want to play?
Oh geez. I don't know. I mean, I love Stilgar. Like that is my go-to. I think probably because I'm husky. I think the Beast Raban is probably someone like I could probably make a better showing of, like and embody it a little bit better. I'm just I'm carrying around.
Could you have that braggadocious way?
I think you put someone in that armor and just put them out there, and it does all the acting for you. Okay. It does the acting for you. Yeah. The bald cap and the armor, and watch me just like putting IT guys through their screen.
Just going off on these nerds.
And running away from Madim.
That's hilarious.
What about you? Who would you be?
It would be an obvious one to say Gurney because I play music and whatnot. But I think probably Duncan Idaho. I think that's my go-to. I like him. I'm no Jason Momoa, but I'm a tall guy and I like to fight. So
and I could see you. I could see you doing Duncan Idaho and big surprise. Huge part in Dune Messiah. Duncan Idaho.
Comes back with a vengeance.
For someone who died early in the story.
Yeah, someone who's hella dead, he's hella back.
Yeah. No, I could see you. Yeah.
Duncan is one of my favorites. And if you continue reading the books, like the Duncan clones, they are a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
But the Gola Duncan is Duncan. Just kind of putting the back to tank and his wounds healed.
From his genetic material and all that. He's just regrown. Yeah, but there are literal, in the later books, like when Emperor Leto is a thing, he has Duncan Idaho clones and he has them optimized for different things and whatnot. Yeah. And it's it's a cool character anyway.
Do you think, we're just talking about Leto the Second and that and the God Emperor and all that. Villeneuve has talked about wanting to do the trilogy and basically ending things with Dune Messiah. I don't think Warner Brothers will be done with Dune after Dune Messiah.
It makes too much money.
Yeah. So do you think they'll keep going, keep making more? And who do you think would say direct a second trilogy?
Alex Proyas.
Not likely. I mean, it's been a very long time. It's been since The Crow that he had any sort of hit.
No, who would be really good? Dune, man.
That we never got to see Guillermo del Toro's Hobbit.
Oh man.
So I would love to see Guillermo del Toro's God Emperor of Dune. Like he would do the worm guy like justice for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really cool. Del Toro would do it up well. I mean, I could even see if they got like a really big name like Spielberg or something crazy. Like he could do a great one too.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. He's one of the greats. So yes, I'm sure he could.
He could make it happen.
He could make it happen.
All right, so we're at our wrap up. What's your personal highlight from this movie?
So broadly speaking, my personal highlight is Paul learning to be Fremen time.
The first act.
The first act of the movie as he's like learning to cross the dunes, learning to do all this stuff. And that all culminates in his first worm ride, which is just truly breathtaking.
It's really cool.
The way the score kicks in, the way they film it, it's almost like an embedded camera, like in a documentary. Like you are running across the dune with him, and then you're hanging on to the back of Shai Hulud for dear life with Paul as he's trying to get the worm hooks in. And like, it's just so visceral and so exciting. And it's one of the moments in the movie that just sticks with you the most.
Yeah, that's a really cool moment.
If it's the same as yours, I have a second one.
No, it's not.
Okay, good. Okay.
But it does involve Paul.
Okay.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I feel like Chalamet and his performance and just this version of Paul is so captivating. He gives such a perfect delivery of the lines. He's powerful. He's emotive. He's vulnerable at times. And it all culminates it culminates in the action sequences. And so, I mean, I have to go with the climax of the movie when he's confronting the Emperor, and I love it when he goes over and he kills the Baron. That's not in the books.
No,
but
it's in his dark vision, but it's not in the book.
Yeah, it was so grim. Like, I love it. How he greets him and everything.
He goes, "You die like an animal."
It's so perfect, and that was Alia's line. And so I love that. And in that scene when he confronts the Emperor, and the Emperor tries to clap back, and then he silences the Reverend Mother. The Emperor realizes, oh fuck,
yeah,
this guy's the real deal. He may not know what a Kwisatz Haderach is. He may not know any of this stuff, but he's like, well, Muad'Dib, they were worshiping him like a god. Might as well be. He has all this shit. So I feel like that scene, even before the knife fight.
Yeah, just the whole throne room.
Yeah, that throne scene is absolutely, it's basically flawless.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Yeah.
So, I guess, what worked for you in general?
Okay. So
you usually like to have these big lists.
I've got a list. I usually have 3. I had more.
I go with vibes more than anything.
My first one is the visual storytelling. I thought the visuals of the first film are incredible, and the visuals of this film are leveled up from the first film. There's like Paul's visions are surreal. The innovative techniques like the infrared camera on Gedi Prime, I just think the visuals are awesome.
Yeah, I think that was amazing.
The ensemble cast, many of them are returning from the first film, but we have some new ones like Austin Butler and Florence Pugh. The cast is just awesome, with Timothy and Zendaya being kind of at the top of the heap. The score and the sound design from Hans Zimmer and King, and this is where I think we're different. I like the changes to Chani's character because I feel like the Chani in the book is underdeveloped. And this Chani has a lot more to do than the version of her in the book.
I mean, no spoilers to those who haven't read. She's not the lead in the books.
No, she's not the lead in this.
She's
either.
the second lead in this.
Yeah,
she's not the second lead in the books.
No, she spends much of the book.
She would be best supporting actress
off in the siege in the south. Like Paul sends her and Jessica down south early on, and then she's off screen for much of the book. She just has a lot more to do in the movie. What about you? What worked for you?
I would say the overall visuals of this movie were just off the charts. I've seen some really good looking movies throughout, doing this podcast and whatnot. And this movie there were some moments in the first and even in the second act where I was just like, I was fucking blown away. Like, I was sitting there in the theater and I was like, oh my God, I'm like getting nostalgic for Arrakis.
Yeah.
Like, it was so crazy. Like, I I can't, it's hard to describe if you don't have a connection to the material, like the source material. I read these books in like my freshman year of high school, and I've read them, I don't know, I've read them probably 5 or 6 times.
Yeah. All like the original,
the 6.
The original 6.
Yeah. And, but the thing is, I would say I probably read all of them maybe 4 or 5 times. I've read Dune 1. I probably read it 15 times.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a perfect book. Like it, as a literary masterpiece, like I can't think of anything I want to change.
Yeah.
I just love reading that book.
Yeah.
And so the way this movie looked and felt,
Yeah.
they were able to use sound and video and sound to make, without dialogue like Villeneuve likes, just scenes in the desert of Paul sitting on top of a dune or him walking with Stilgar up a dune. Just the two of them, and made me feel real feelings.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
It was powerful. Like I loved that about this movie. So what didn't work for you?
What didn't work for me? This is something that you've said. I'm not sure about the condensed timeline. I feel like we're missing a lot by squeezing down 3 years into like 8 months. We're missing out on creepy Aaliyah. We're missing out on Paul and Chaney's first son, who's the death of who is such a major turning point in Paul's character. Because in the book, that really is the moment that hardens him, when the son dies.
Yeah, he's not just purely a vengeance seeker. He's in mourning for his son.
Yeah, and it really he's like, all right. I mean, now that's kind of the thing I was holding back for, and now without that, I'm gonna go, full ham on the Harkonnens.
I'm gonna get my weirding module and go nuts.
Yeah, and so I feel like the condensed timeline, we lost a lot by squeezing it down like that. And that's my main one. The other one is a small one, or maybe it's not small. It's small for me. It feels weird that in a movie that's so inspired by Arab and Persian culture that there's like no Arab or Persian people in the whole movie. It just feels like, really, like you couldn't get some people of whatever descent to play the Fremen people. It just feels odd. I think that could have been handled better. And I get it; it's a fictional culture, but it's a fictional culture that's heavily. It's like Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's all fictional cultures, but they're based on specific.
Tibetan.
Yeah, they're based on very specific Asian cultures, and the Fremen are this like Arab Persian mashup, and there's just none of that in the actual film.
Yeah.
What about you? What didn't work for you?
Oh man,
this is long.
No, I've already said it. I didn't like the changes to Chani because I loved the Chani that I loved in the books. I thought she was like an excellent partner, and I thought she was an awesome mother, and she was just like this really cool, admirable character in my mind that I had. I had this idea of this character that I find her to be just like an excellent partner to Paul, and she's very respectable and very strong. She always tells him what's up, and she always pushes him to make the right decision, but supports him because she knows that he's faced with impossible decisions. There's no good answer. It's all bad.
When she doesn't understand why he does what he does, she still sort of trusts him.
And that's exactly where I was going. She trusts Paul in the books, and she doesn't trust him in this movie.
Interesting, yeah.
She doesn't trust him in the least. And I don't like that.
Okay.
I like the I guess I like the pro Paul Chani rather than the anti Paul Chani, and so that's just my major gripe. But and then the other one is and the timeline thing, whatever. I didn't really like the the fundamentalist coding. I don't like that. I don't think we need to have
how they split them, the north-south split.
Those guys are the crazy desert religious fellas. You know, it's like, come on, guys.
We're regular secular anti-fascists, and they're the religious ones.
Yeah, it's like you're already dangerously close to real cultures with your coding here. We don't need to be saying like, we're the reasonable ones and they are Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, let's just be sci-fi. You guys are a zealot culture that got brainwashed by the Bene Gesserit. We don't need divisions within. You already have enough enemies. You don't need more drama. Like, it only served to build drama, which is fine if you needed drama.
Right.
But you absolutely don't need drama.
Okay.
You have a love story, you have action stories, you have these redemption arcs and all this crazy stuff.
There's plenty of drama without inventing new drama.
Yeah, we have enough. Like, they could have given all of that screen time to Paul lamenting the loss of Stilgar, his father figure best friend.
Yeah.
But they gave nothing to that.
Right.
So I just think that was a choice, and it's not a choice I like.
Okay.
And that didn't make it a bad movie. It just made it a less than it could have been movie.
Yeah.
So what's your final thoughts, and what's your rating?
So I had this thought leaving the theater, like I'd really seen something special. You know what I mean? Like, and not to like put other things down to lift something up. I leave a lot of like modern blockbuster movies feeling like underwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like
the Marvel effect.
Yeah, like they spent $200 million, and that's all we got was that sort of movie by committee. Where this is a singular vision of Denis Villeneuve's. It's his Dune Part 2. No one else could have made this film. It is unique to him, and I love it. And I loved the first one, and I'm so stoked for the next one that's not even starting that I had to read the book, like, because I was so hungry for Dune Messiah at that point.
Oh man.
So for me, yes, 5-star movie. This is an exceptional film, and I think it's great.
So when I was watching this movie, in the first scene, or in the first act, and even into the second act, when I was watching it, and I was just moved.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is a 5-star movie, but like there's no such thing as a 6-star movie. I was like, fuck, man. And as it progressed, I just got less and less, and I pulled out my phone to look at what time it was. And it was just like, man, it started so strong. Like, I loved the Fremen stuff.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, I'm like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, why does Chani not love him? Like, why doesn't she like trust him? She's obviously not religious like she is in the book.
Yeah.
So she doesn't revere him, which is fine. That's a fine change that, a wife wouldn't revere the husband in that way. That's kind of weird, but so that's fine. But I was, and then I was just like, man, why this change? Why that change? It's just weird. And so I was poisoned by my expectations. We've
talked about that a lot, how the expectation is the thief of joy.
It's the thief of joy. Yeah. And so it thiefed my joy.
Yeah.
And so it's really sad, because I do think this was an amazing accomplishment of film. This is like a masterpiece of cinema, but it's not the one I wanted to see.
Oof.
And so that sucks. So does that mean I give it a 5, or do I give it a 4 because it let me down? I think I let myself down. And that's sad. So I'm going to give it a 5, but it's a sad 5.
It's a sad 5 because you didn't get what
it is
you wanted.
It is a masterpiece of cinema. I can't take that away. But it's not the movie I wanted to see.
Yeah.
That's
very valid.
I want to see the books made into a movie, and I know that's always what every book fan says when their favorite properties get made into stuff. Just like when Game of Thrones stuff like ruins certain things in the series, and then season 8, oof. Well, that's fanfic.
So, I mean, not to tangent too much on Game of Thrones, what would you rate Game of Thrones overall?
Oh, God.
The whole thing, all 8 seasons.
4 stars?
Yeah, I mean, it might be more than that. Like, kind of the same thing.
They really...
How badly did they fumble the ball?
Yeah, that's the thing, because they had like 5 quality seasons, and then 3 meh. Like, and then 6 and 7 were pretty decent, and then 8 shit the bed. And so it's like, where do you go with that?
That's like a 4.5.
Yeah,
I think is what we're describing.
So I don't think they made the threshold of a 5.
No, you're right. Season 1, solid
5. Yeah. I mean, seasons 1 through 5 are 5-star seasons, and then they just dive.
Yeah,
you know,
they got past the books.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough Game of Thrones. Back to Dune.
So yeah, I guess I give it a sad 5.
Give it a sad 5. I respect the sad 5.
I feel like if I gave it a 4 because of my expectations, that's just me trying to be me and not actually have commentary on the movie.
Yeah.
Because everybody rates this movie amazingly.
Yeah.
Like, this movie is just crushing it in reviews and and everything, especially for people who haven't read the book. They love this shit.
And that's what's so great. And that's why I generally don't read the book until after I've seen the film, because that when you're going to things like waiting for things to happen and they don't happen, and it just gives you like a deflated feeling every time something you were waiting for doesn't happen. You feel let down. Whereas if you watch it clean, you can just appreciate it, and then when you go to the book enriches the movie.
Yeah, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, this new Netflix series. It's awesome, and I didn't watch the cartoons.
Yeah.
So fuck it.
And I have the feel, like, I watched like 3 episodes, and I like it, but I have the sense of, like, I've seen this all, like, I've seen it all done before.
Yeah.
What am I watching this for? When it's
a more grim, dark version.
I don't know. That cartoon gets dark at points. There's a lot of flying around on the buffalo, but there's a lot of darkness.
Yeah,
too.
That's true.
Okay, so we're double 5s on this. You want to take a break, and we'll come back with the Vault of Darkness?
Sounds great.
Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this content, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people and leave us a review wherever you listen.
All right, David, what are you pulling out of the Vault of Darkness? What has Dune inspired you to pull out?
Well, this is very easy and predictable. Emperors, God emperors, all of this stuff. So I'm going to recommend some novels.
Oh, okay.
From Warhammer 40K. These are prequel novels. It happens in Warhammer 30K.
Yeah.
They don't call it that.
It's like 10,000 years
yes,
before.
10,000 years before Warhammer 40K.
Which would be 10,000 years after Dune if it was the same universe.
I think it is. So if you're not familiar with Warhammer 40K, it's a sci-fi setting that really rips off every major property, including Dune. And it rips off Dune in a big way. But there's a series of novels I've started, and I'm about 5 novels deep now. I'm just finishing book 4. I'm almost starting 5. Called The Horus Heresy.
Okay.
So the Horus Heresy is, it starts during the end of what's known as the Great Crusade. So think like Paul Atreides' Crusade. But it's not exactly the same. The Emperor has sent out his Space Marine legions to make contact with all of the lost children of men that set off to the stars in the millennia before, the several millennia before, and have lost contact and are now living independently out among the stars. So the Crusade was all about that. And so this takes place basically when the Crusade is tidying up. And it's called the Horus Heresy because this is when the War Master, who is basically the Emperor's top general, he decides to turn against the emperor, and because the emperor has been essentially vacant. He's no longer an active part of the crusade, and so Horus turns against the emperor and he embraces the gods of chaos. And this is where we get the great division in the setting. So this is the genesis of all of the split in mankind. And
where you get the Chaos Marines.
Marines and all of these people that have, cultists and stuff that have sworn themselves to these chaos gods. And really, you don't have to be super invested in the setting. If you like spaceships and like Space Marine, I like the idea of space soldiers, and you like the idea of like this intergalactic politics, kind of Dune-ish.
Yeah,
it's really interesting because these are what amount to high-ranking military officers, and there's the main characters. There's several point of view characters, but there's a few of them in the first several books that are the main ones from these different legions, and they're very, very identifiable. Like you really feel for these people, and they're well-written books. The author is of the first one, Horus Rising, is written by Dan Abnett,
and you've mentioned him, several times.
He's amazing. Dan Abnett is a kick-ass author. And so I really enjoy these books. Now, I think it's the first 6 or 7 are linear, sequential, this happens and this happens and this happens. And then from there, the series just goes off the chain. It's more like, okay, so while all that other shit was happening, what was happening with these guys out here so far away? And what were these guys doing? And what were these guys doing? And it all braids together in this tapestry of craziness. And there's like a million books. There's like 165 books. I have not read them all at all. So after the first few books, so you get the genesis of the story, you can pick and choose what you want to read out of the series. You can,
and they're all part of these, what did you say, heresy?
The Horus Heresy. They're all part of the Horus Heresy, but there are like sub-series within the series. There's like all these different ones, and I'm reading these mostly because I want to read about the armies, the stuff that I play in the game. So
get the backstory.
Yeah, I want to get that full backstory. So if you're interested in epic space fantasy with military drama and crazy magic psychic powers added into the mix, the Horus Heresy, especially book 1, very worth reading. I've highly enjoyed the first 4 books, so much so that I haven't even stopped to listen to the podcasts that I listen to.
You've just been going audiobook to audiobook?
Yeah, and I've got a backlog. So
see, when I finish a book, I usually, even if I've been ignoring my podcatcher, I'll hit the refresh on the podcatcher and see all the episodes load and go like, is there anything I need to listen to before I go to the next one?
Yeah, there's one podcast that I've been like, oh God, I got to go listen. So after this book, I'm going to go listen, and then I'm going to come back.
Go right back.
I got 7 of them queued up, so I have 3 more.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because they're so good.
Okay.
All right, so what do you got? What are you pulling out of the vault?
Keeping in line with Dune, Denis Villeneuve went on Esquire as a magazine, but he was speaking with Esquire, and they made a YouTube video where he was talking about the 5 films that influenced Dune Part 2.
Oh.
And 2 of them are 2 of my favorite films, and one is
Fraggle Rock.
Is there a Fraggle Rock film?
Oh yeah.
And one of them is a Looney Tunes short, so it's really four films, and 2 of them are my favorite. And I watched the number 1 film recently, so I'm gonna list these 5 movies, and then I'll go in depth on any of them that you want me to go in depth on. But I'll talk about the one I watched recently.
All right.
So the 5 films are Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, directed by David Lean. The Last Temptation of Christ, 1988, from Martin Scorsese. Number 3 is Akira, 1988, Katsuhiro Otomo. Number 4 is Persona, 1966, Ingmar Bergman. That's the only movie of these 5 that I haven't seen, so I can't speak to it, but I'll get to it soon. And then number 5 was Beep Beep, the Roadrunner short by Chuck Jones.
Okay.
Which was influential on the desert action. Like if you watch that short and then like go back and watch the sandworm scenes and things like that, in a very weird way, the Roadrunner cartoons are visibly influential on this movie.
Wow, that's interesting.
So the one that I had never seen before, and it's such a touchstone of cinema that gets referenced constantly from everything from Dune to the Book of Boba Fett and like so many other things, is Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. You didn't see that like on TNT when you were a kid, like just on?
It's too boring to watch as a kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It is an old school epic. It is 3 hours and 45 minutes long. It's a big commitment to watch it, and a lot of it is just like big widescreen Panavision shots of the desert with camels crossing. Like there's a lot of gorgeous photography, but it's not something that a 9-year-old can watch. But it is kind of not the movie I thought it was at all. Like right from the jump, T.E. Lawrence is sort of like a flamboyant, queer, foppish guy almost. And I had no idea. Like, that was not what I expected out of this movie. And he has very much, like, Villeneuve says it's very much like the journey of Paul Atreides, where it's this man coming from another culture, coming to the desert and falling in love with the culture of the desert and becoming part of it, and then ultimately betraying it in the end. And it's just like, it's an epic movie. It's sad. It's tragic. There's parts of it that are funny. They, like Villeneuve, do everything the hard way. Like go out into the desert in Jordan with 1,000 extras on horses and camels and film these huge battles. It's filmmaking on a scope you don't see. Like, they would never do things like that nowadays, because probably people definitely got hurt. Probably animals got hurt or died in the making of this movie. It is really just like a marvel of cinema. So Lawrence of Arabia fairly blew me away.
Well, that's good to hear. I've never seen the movie because when it was on when I was a kid, I was like, boring.
Yeah. Well,
where's Terminator?
And nothing against Terminator, 5-star film. I love Terminator. But this is a whole other kind of thing. So Lawrence of Arabia was just awesome. And then Akira and The Last Temptation of Christ, I think, are also awesome films.
I love Akira. It's amazing. That movie is sick. I've never seen Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, man. I'll go a little deep on that, too. So Willem Dafoe plays Jesus.
Okay.
Harvey Keitel is Judas.
Is he like a flamboyant queer Jesus? Because I'd be into that.
No. He is a reluctant Messiah Jesus. Like, it's another way that it mirrors Paul's journey.
Okay.
And if you remember when we were kids, that movie caused such an uproar because of it showing Jesus like having relations with a lady and like and things that
he's like doing blow and raw dog and hookers.
But it is a fundamentally spiritual movie because none of the stuff happens. They are literally the temptation that he endures, right? Like the devil shows him the life he could have if he chooses to not be the Messiah. And it's a human life where he has a romantic partner. And like, it's about like what he has to give up in order to sacrifice himself and be the Messiah, and the weight of that sacrifice. And Martin Scorsese is Catholic. It comes from a fundamentally place of religious sincerity.
Yeah.
So anyone that actually saw the movie should not be upset about the content of the movie, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah. Big thumbs up on Last Temptation of Christ also.
Okay. I mean, I make it a policy not to watch Jesus movies. It's just kind of a thing I don't like. I don't like the whole
but it's
death cult thing.
Willem Dafoe, though.
Okay.
And Harvey Keitel.
If he was a pretend Jesus with pretend followers.
Let me tell you something about movies.
What?
They're all pretend Jesus.
Every Jesus is a pretend
It's a pretend Jesus.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely would have thought Lawrence of Arabia, and I can definitely see Last Temptation of Christ, but I wasn't sure. Akira, Looney Tunes,
Yeah, Beep Beep was the surprise one, but I watched it. I watched that last night, and I was like, also, damn, those old Looney Tunes are great. Like, the animation is incredible in those.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
So I'll have to check back with Persona when I watch that.
Yeah, let me know how that goes.
Okay.
We'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you unpleasant dreams.